After you've finished collecting your mussels for the Riverwatch Mussel Survey, it's time to fill out the Freshwater Mussel Resource Value Worksheet, which is the last sheet in your data sheet packet. This will help us calculate the health of the mussel community overall. It uses 4 different metrics, including the number of extant species, the number of extant intolerant species, the catch per unit effort, and the percent of live species with individual growth ring with low amounts of growth rings to calculate recruitment, how many are reproducing. So to calculate number of extant species, this is how many species of mussel we collected that were either in live or recent dead condition, indicating that they are living in the site. This does not include relict mussels that only you had a relict condition for. So for our survey, you can see our mussel species final count sheet on the left side over here. We had the cylindrical paper shell, the ellipse, and the slipper shell counting as extant species because they had either a recent dead or live specimens. The giant floater and the lilliput did not count as extant because we only had relics. So we had 3 extant species, and that falls in the 1 to 3 range, which gives us a species richness factor of 2, so we write our SR factor of 2. Next we have the number of extant intolerant species. You see here in the fine print, intolerant species are all state-listed threatened and endangered species, plus the fluted shell, monkey face, and ellipse. So we look at our mussel tally sheet over here, and we did have the ellipse, and so that's in that little fine print block right there, even though that's not technically state-listed. And then we also had the slipper shell, which is state-listed as threatened. And we did have a live or recent dead of those, so that counts as 2 extant intolerant species. That falls in the 2+ category, so that gives us a intolerant species richness of 5. Now, if we had, say, the slipper shell, we only had relics, that would not have counted as an extant intolerant species because relics do not count as extant. Next, we have the catch per unit effort. This is the number of live individual mussels divided by man hours. So we searched for 50 minutes, so 50, and then we had 9 people searching, so 50 times 9 is 450 minutes, and we divide that 450 minutes by 60 minutes to give us 7.5 man hours. And then how many live individual mussels did we find? We come back over here to our final tally sheet, and we have 1 cylindrical paper shell that was alive and 12 ellipses, so that was 13 live mussels. We divide 13 live mussels by 7.5 man hours of effort, and that's going to give us less than 2, so that's going to fall in the 1 to 10 range right here, giving us an abundance factor of 2. So we write our abundance factor of 2 right up here. Next, we have the percent of live species with individuals 0 to 3 growth rings or that are very small for the species. So we want to know how many of the species we collected had very small, how many of the species of the live species we collected, that's an important designation. So we're only talking about species that were collected alive, had individuals with 0 to 3 growth rings. And so, or were very small for their species. Growth rings can be pretty hard to discern. And maybe very small is usually a good designation is less than 30 millimeters, although that can be skewed for the very small mussel species. So we had, as far as very small mussel species, we did get some very small ellipse, but we did not get any small cylindrical paper shell. So out of the 2 live species we collected, 1 live species looked like it had a recent recruitment, and so 2 divided by 1 is going to be, basically you're looking for the percentage of live species with recent recruitment, so that would be 50% of the live species we collected, because 1 out of the 2 live species we collected had recent recruitment, so 50% falls in the 30 to 50 range here, so we have a reproduction factor of 4. So we write that right here. Now to calculate at the bottom the mussel classification index, the MCI, we're going to add together all our different community factors. So species richness, intolerant species richness, catch per unit effort, recruitment factors, those all add up to 13. And so we look at our table down here, and if we get a mussel classification index of 13, that falls in the 12 to 15 range, and that is the highly valued section. So that means the mussel community has high species richness and or abundance, represents rare species present, evidence of recent recruitment likely, resource of statewide significance. So that's a pretty good score, and that's a good metric for the overall mussel community.